Hi friends, welcome back to the StoneburnerBooks YouTube channel. This is the first book that I'm completing for my Junk Journal January challenge. If you missed the last video, basically what I'm doing is I'm participating in the challenge in my own way. I don't think 30 days of journaling is realistic for me right now, but making 4 journals that could be junk journals or art journals feels like a good fit for me. So that's what I'm working on. My first book that I'm going to do is I am going to revisit Harry and the Sea Serpent, which is one that I did back in the fall, I think, as I started it as a jump start to my creativity. I think I called it Upcycling Roulette, and I picked out some different things out of a hat to tell me like what type of pages it was going to have, if there was going to be special stuff. So I will link that video here, and if you want to see the original parts of it. And I am going to get started. I just pulled this out from storage, and I'm going to get started on turning this into an actual journal by the end of the week. So I hope that you will stick around and see what I come up with. Bye.
So like I said, I had to take this one out of storage, so I really needed to just open it up and get my bearings and see what was going on. When I first took it apart, I looked at all of the illustrations and I separated them out into ones I thought I would use for the book, ones that I thought would be fun to frame, and ones that I could play around with. One of the things you'll see in here is that some of them have color added, and I selected some of them that I knew I wanted to practice with, and like that one right there. So I had to get my bearings and see what I even had, and then I was ready to cut apart this cover. When I'm working on a book like this, I need to cut the spine so I can do a Coptic binding, so that's what you see I'm doing here. You can see this one gave me a little bit of a run for my money in getting the spine separated from that cover. Had to bring out some scissors, but I got it taken care of, and then it was time to clean up. The next task after this is going to be covering up some of the markings. This book was a discarded library book, so you can see it's got some Sharpie lines there, and originally I thought I was just going to cover those Sharpie lines, but then I realized that actually the white papers were also messed up, so it was time to cover up and make some new end sheets. So here I am cutting the end sheets, and those will replace the white covers on the inside. Okay, so here you will see where my brain is thinking, okay, you need to cover up those black Sharpie marks, and then I am not remembering and realizing that the teal paper is already covering them up. So I spent some time cutting apart this marbled paper. I wanted it to kind of look like waves, kind of to mimic that illustration on the front cover and some of the other illustrations that were going to be included in the book. I thought it would be really cool to have that going on the inside covers, but I ultimately, spoiler alert, did not use it. You will see me try to figure that out in a minute here, and I just could not make it happen. I tried it all different ways, and it just wasn't matching what it was in my mind, so I had to give it up. Okay, with that plan abandoned, I went ahead and started to glue down my end sheets. I wanted to make sure that I glued these down before I turned in that little bit of original fabric that I left at the edge. So just measuring them out and cutting them down, making sure that they fit the same size as the original end sheets, and smoothing it all out. You can see I just made sure that everything was flush to the edge there, and then it's hard to tell because it's white paper, white cloth on white paper, but there I am adding that little bit of glue to the edge of the original spine cloth, and I'll fold that over just to give it a little bit more of a finished look. Okay, once this cover is all glued up, as well as the other one, it will go into blotter paper, and it will press overnight just to really help secure it and get it ready for binding. Here it is being removed from the blotter paper overnight. Looks nice and smooth. The edges looked great. And there you go. So I've got 2 covers and I'm ready to get started on the next step. Okay, so the next step is actually measuring these and figuring out what size page I'm going to use. Because I cut down the original spine, it's not going to match the actual original page size. It's going to be a little bit a little bit smaller than it. And this is definitely one of those situations where you take a ton of measurements, because sometimes these old books, the top doesn't match the bottom, the front cover doesn't match the back cover, and so I take all the measurements and try to figure out a happy medium. So see, I've measured the back cover, now I'm measuring the front cover, and just kind of comparing all of my notes and figuring out to make sure that it actually all is going to work well. With my page measurements figured out, now it is time to figure out what color pages I'm going to use. I know I'm going to use either white or a soft white. I have both options, and I know I want to use some accent paper. The papers I have aren't exactly a perfect match for that blue on the cover. It's kind of a turquoisey blue combination, so I think I'm going to use both the turquoise and the dark blue. But then here you can see this is the ivory color paper that I have for my pages. And then I also have a white, and with the old books it's hard to tell because what might look bright white is actually closer to an ivory. So in this case I decided the ivory works best, even though the cover itself is a little bit brighter white. So I think that ivory is the choice. I take one final look at all of the papers I've chosen to include, and I like how they look, and then I have this idea that I will maybe incorporate some of this blue marbled paper as accent paper. Alright, with my aesthetic choices made, it's time to get down to the business of actually cutting out the pages. I cut all of mine by hand in small batches, and I just find that it works best to get the best measurement, the more accurate measurement. And so you'll see I'm cutting some of the ivory pages and some of the colorful pages that I'm going to use as accents on each signature. Now that everything is cut to size, it is time to fold it. So I fold all of the accent paper in batches by color and set those aside, and then I'm also going to fold my pages in small batches. You can see I've grabbed a signature's worth of paper, and even that I cut into half and fold it in half, and then I reunite it, and now it's time for the speedy version of that. Okay, with all of my signature pages folded, it's time to collate and put a cover on each signature. And then once these are all stacked and ready to go, they will go into the book press overnight. Alright, it is the next day. I am getting started on the project again. It's time to get the stuff out of the presses, so I'm moving over all of the odds and ends with this book that I've collected. There's kind of getting to be a pile of stuff that I want to include in the book, and then I will take it out from under the bricks and the weights. I use this instead of a screw top book press. I find it's a little bit easier to use, and the application is a little bit more flexible. I can also stack a ton of stuff together at once. Now that my pages are out of the book press, it's time to prepare them for sewing. The original pages from the book have holes exactly where I want them to be, so I want to make a template for punching my holes in my new pages to make sure that it mimics those original holes. The yellow paper you see here is just regular cardstock. I like using cardstock to make my templates because it's just a little bit sturdier, holds up better, and you can see here I am going to measure the holes and mark them from the original onto my template, and then I can get started on punching my signatures. With all of my signatures punched, I begin laying things out how I want them to be sewn into the book. And you will see here I have an existential crisis. If I had thought this through, I would have had an odd number of signatures. I really it pains me that I start with a dark blue and I end with a teal. I really want to start and end with a dark blue, but by this point I didn't want to take out a signature and go down to 5, but I also didn't have enough illustrations that I like to have 7 signatures, so I'm going with 6. I'm going to live with it. It's all going to be okay. But here I am collating and adding in those illustrations and original book pages, as well as some of that marbled paper just to be an accent. Like I said at the beginning, I want this to be a junk journal or an art journal, so I like adding in little tabs for whoever gets this journal to take their own twist on it and add things to that. That's also another reason why I didn't end up adding too much color to these original illustrations. While I have a lot of awesome ideas about how I might want to color it, it's not going to ultimately be my journal, so I want to leave that for somebody else. So I have everything stacked and collated and set up, and I am going to do a multi-needle Coptic binding on this one. I decided to do just a solid color thread. I had debated alternating blues, but I wanted to go with a solid color on this one. And voila! Through the magic of editing, I have a sewn up book. This is going to head into the press. So you can see where I just removed the pages from earlier today, I'm putting the finished book back under weights. This will again press overnight, and that just helps the stitches and all of the pages kind of relax into their shape. Alright, here we are the next morning, and it's time to once again unload the presses. I just have to take off the brick and the board, and then we'll have a finished book. While I was working on this, there were a collection of items that kind of were offcuts and were just things that I wanted to include. So all of this stack of stuff will go with this book. So whoever gets it as an art journal or a junk journal will have some extra ephemera to use. I'm really happy with how that map turned out, and just flipping through, it's so nice to see how it all came together with the different color pages and the marbled paper and the original pages. I can't wait to see who gets this and what they use it for. Thanks so much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe so that you can see the other books in the series. This one is book number 1. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.